Okay, so today on my show, I've got a special guest. I've got Amy Bingham, and she's in Madrid and got a company that do walk and eat tours in Madrid area. Hi, Amy. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, David. Yes, I can. It's nice to be here.
Great. So, Amy, tell us a little bit about your background. You're, by the accent, American, I believe. Is that right?
That's correct. I was born in Tucson, Arizona, and my family split between Texas and Arizona now. And Madrid has been my home for just over 10 years. It was never kind of the plan to be here for 10 years, but if any of your listeners have been to Madrid, they might know it's a really incredible city and one that's pretty hard to leave once you start living here.
Yeah, the only trouble is the traffic situation on my point, but that's a
Yeah.
nightmare. But yeah, I love Madrid. Been there several times, and love the meat tapas they do there. They do some extra special dishes there, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, Amy, yeah, I'm quite familiar with Arizona. I've got a friend that lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, so I know the area. And actually, where I'm living in Almeria now is very, very similar. The two areas are very dry, very humid, not very green at all, but and we get very little rain of the year. So even more reason to go out and have some tapas here. So Amy, so tell us a little bit about these tours. What for anybody that's going to Madrid, these tours just going around local bars and restaurants. Tell us a bit more about that.
That's right. So, what we specialize in are experiences that really explore the different neighborhoods of Madrid. Madrid is this huge capital city, the third largest city in Europe, but every neighborhood, every individual sort of area in the city has a totally different vibe, has a totally different sort of reason why you would go there. And so, our tours focus largely on the Malasaña neighborhood. And this is a really sort of trendy neighborhood that has kind of one foot in the future and one foot in the past. And so, what we try and do with our tours is not just, eat good things and drink good things, which is absolutely fundamental and why we're all here, but also introduce you to, Jose who cuts the ham and to, Roberto who serves the olives and all of the people that really make up the fabric of this neighborhood and make Madrid such a unique place to go out for tapas.
So the people will book a tour online. I'll give you some details about your company later on, and also be a link below this video. But if people want to go on to your tours, they can book it online, and it's different levels of tours. And how long do they last? Give us some idea of the tours.
Absolutely. So we have two public tours that you can book online. They have a maximum of 8 guests for each of those tours. We have a daytime tour that visits the traditional market. And so you'll kind of eat your way through the olive stand and the cheese stand and the other different stands in the market, and then have a tapas lunch at the market stall that's been in the same family now for 2 generations. And all of the foods that they serve are made using ingredients in the market. And so we have that as our daytime experience. And then in the evening, it's all about tapas and wine. So if you're a wine lover like me, that is the tour to go for. We try 6 different types of Spanish wines throughout the evening, each one paired with its perfect dish to go with it, as you kind of have this sort of epic night out in the Malasaña neighborhood, kicking things off with, your cured meats and cheeses, all the way through kind of the heartier raciones, shared plates, and a little blind wine tasting of red wines.
So the raciones, we have raciones down here, which is a little bit bigger than a tapa, really. But other tapas aren't free in Madrid like they are here in Almeria. What sort of price would you pay for, say, a beer or a glass of wine, and you wanted just a tapa?
So I think this word tapa is kind of universally used outside of Spain to mean kind of different things to different people. But I would say here in Spain, the word tapa means something totally different everywhere you are. So down in Almeria, a tapa might be, a piece of toast with some delicious things topped with it, or maybe some croquetas or something like that. Whereas here in Madrid, our sort of free nibble, our free tapa that comes with a glass of wine or a beer is usually going to be some awesome olives or some potato chips. And so that will always come free with your drink, almost always. And so for a caña, which is a tiny little beer, 5 sips, we like to say, perfect for a hot day in Madrid, and a little bowl of olives to come with it, you're usually going to pay between €2 and €3.
Well, that's pretty good. Where I am here, right on the coast near Almeria Airport, we pay €3 to 3.50 for a beer. For a tubo,
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit large. Well, I suppose it's about the same size as a Canyon, just a different type of glass.
Mm-hmm.
But you get a menu where you can order a tapa off of the menu. So you get a choice, little mini hamburger, some chips and some meat. One of my favorites is octopus here. The octopus is lovely. And on Fridays down here, they do paella negro, black paella. A lot of people don't like it. It looks a bit weird. It's just paella, or I say paella, which is pronounced badly, but my wife picks me up on that. But when I'm speaking English, I say paella, but it's paella, as you know. And yeah, it's tinted with black ink, but it's quite tasty. Have you tried that? Do you get that in Madrid?
Oh, I love it. In fact, there's a tiny little paella restaurant in my neighborhood. I live in the La Latina neighborhood that does, I think, one of the best arroz negros I've ever had. But the key to me for arroz negro is actually the aioli, the garlicky mayonnaise that they put with it, because that squid ink kind of flavor can get very intense, but that aioli cuts through it and gives you kind of that garlicky hit. And you're just like, this is Spain. This is what I'm here for.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people, I took some friends out a little while ago to try it, and they were very put off by the look of it, the color and everything. And once they tasted it, they thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, it's taking the step to try these new dishes. So what sort of dishes would you have in Madrid that maybe we wouldn't have down here?
Ooh, now that's a really good question. One of the things that I always love going out for, because it's kind of the most non-committal version of eating a meal, is what they call tostas. And so they're thick slices of bread topped with all sorts of delicious things. And the whole idea behind the tosta in Madrid is that we have these tiny little tapas bars all throughout the city. They get absolutely slammed with people on the weekends. And so you're standing and kind of juggling your drink, juggling your food. And the tosta is this ingenious way to get the food from the bar to your mouth without actually needing a fork and a knife. And so they just use the bread as the vehicle for all the tasty things. One of my favorite tostas in town, they do salmorejo, which is a garlicky tomato emulsion. Then they top that with ventresca tuna belly, some roasted red peppers, and then a little sprinkling of chives over the top. Not only is it beautiful, it is delicious and goes perfectly with a nice glass of Seco de Ello white wine.
Nice. In Pamplona, they do. It's like a tostada, like you suggested there, but it's actually called pincho, which is a different tapa down here altogether. But pincho, it's all the tapas are served on a piece of French bread, but it's a long piece of French bread, so it's almost like a shovel, so you can get more in. So yeah, but that is you have to pay €3 for the tapa up there on top of the beer. So what about cheeses? There's some pretty good cheeses. I quite like my cheeses as well. So can you recommend a good cheese?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many great cheese options when we're talking about cheeses in Spain. I think if you're in Madrid, the key is not necessarily the type of cheese you order, but where you order it. There's quite a few specialty cheese places where you have people that know more about cheese than anyone else I've ever met that can make a cheese plate for you of really interesting small production cheeses that you might not find elsewhere. So one of my favorite places in town is a tiny little bar called Carbonera, which is in the Conde Duque neighborhood. Now at Carbonera, the owner, Marcelo, is a cheese guru, a true cheese guru, judges most of the cheese competitions. And so the cheeses they have there change every day, but you can tell him a bit, I really like creamy cheeses or really like blue cheeses, whatever it might be, and he'll construct you this perfect plate with the added bonus that they have a pretty spectacular wine list to go with those cheeses as well. So I always opt more for the place rather than a specific cheese.
Lovely, yeah. So, Amy, while we're talking about food and drink, obviously the British people, they like their drop of wine. I know I do as well on a Friday, like to open a different bottle. And so, come on, being a wine expert, what would you recommend? Red or white? Are you a red or white person?
Yes, all of the above. Depends on the day, depends on what it is, but I do love a good glass of wine. My partner's doing dry January, and I was like, look, hon, I support you entirely, but I cannot join you in this effort.
So what would you recommend? Something that might be able to get down here in this part of Spain?
One of my favorite wines, particularly if you're looking for sort of a price quality ratio, something that's really inexpensive but really spectacular, is a wine called Laya, Laya. And this is a Garnacha Tintorera. So it's a really dark, intense wine from the Almansa region. And smooth, beautiful, easy to drink, goes really well with food or without food. And for me, it's really hard to find a bottle that I think is as good as this for a price as low as this. Usually you find it in a shop for anywhere between €5.50 to €7.
That's not a bad price. And that's a red wine, yeah?
Red, yes. And so what's cool about this wine is it's made using this grape called Garnacha Tintorera, which is one of only 2 grapes in the whole world that is actually red on the inside. So almost every red grape, if you were to peel it, would be white on the inside, and you could press it and make a white wine out of it. But Garnacha Tintorera is different. It's actually got red pulp, which means that any wines made using this grape are just deep, dark, extra red in color, really kind of beautiful wines.
Right. And what was that one called again? Sorry?
Garnacha Tintorera is the Spanish name. It's also referred to in some areas as Alicante Bouschet. Not easier to say.
We'll write this down at the bottom and put a link in it at the bottom. Okay. And I like, as far as white, I like dry white wine, and particularly I like the Cava here, and it's pretty cheap down in this part of Spain, and there's many different from the €2 in Mercadona now, which is pretty good price, up to quite expensive Cavas. But can you recommend a white?
I am completely with you on the Cava front. I love some bubbles. And Cava is a really interesting wine because it is the first wine region in the world that requires all of its producers to produce their wines organically. Now, there's a lot of sort of legislation around this and what to look for and all of that. But the main focus, or the main point, I would say, of this is because Cava is organic, it's probably going to give you a lot less of a headache. So go ahead and buy that €2 bottle of Cava. Any other wine, I would say, avoid the €2 option. It's going to feel horrible in the morning. But with Cava, because it's organic, even the really inexpensive Cavas are just a little bit better than I think the other wines you can get at a similar price point, and also will give you a lot less of a headache. And so I am a huge proponent of Cava right now.
Yeah, sure. I say €2. I think it's $2.65. It might have gone up a little bit now, but $2.65 in Mercadona. And it's an old favourite. If you've got friends coming over at the weekend, we always get 2 or 3 bottles of that because it goes down quite well. So, Amy, I'm going to leave a link later on at the end of this so people can get in touch with you and find out more about your tours you do. And what's a good time of year to come to Madrid? Because I know I've been there in July and it's pretty intense, the heat there in July. So what sort of month, if British people are thinking of coming to have a look around Madrid, what sort of month do you think is the best month?
I would say spring or fall. We get sort of the extremes when it comes to seasons here in Madrid. It is very cold here right now and very wet today as well. But when we get March, April, May time of year, all of the flowers in the city start blooming. The city really comes to life, and it's the perfect time of year to sit out at a terrace, sit out in a plaza, have a glass of wine or a little caña as you kind of sit out in the sun before it gets too hot. Even the end of June can be very toasty here in Madrid. And then July is just, it's like trying to live on the surface of the sun. In August, the city pretty much shuts down as everyone flocks to areas like Almeria, pretty much anywhere with a coastline. And then in the fall, it's beautiful as well. So kind of late September, October is a fantastic month. November starts to get a bit chilly, and then December, January is very cold.
Okay, Amy, so we've done the cheese and the wine. One other thing I've got to ask about the ham. I'm a big ham fan as well. So my Spanish wife's got some family in Salamanca and all around that area. They bring down some lovely ham. Can you recommend something specific up there?
Oh my goodness. Ham is one of those things where I try to forget that it exists because otherwise I have to eat it every day. It is incredible, right? There's just nothing like good Spanish ham. One of my favorite places to go in Madrid for some ham is a little shop that's on Calle Arenal, which is just between the Central Plaza Sol, and Opera. So really central part of town. And this little shop called Extrem has what I would consider to be some of the best cured meats in the city. They also have cheese plates, but I would focus on the meats there. And their black label ham is life-changing. It's fantastic. They also have a pretty good wine list as well. So, great ham must go with great wine.
Something I like different types of the ham, but one of my my Spanish wife's family members says that, you know, obviously the older, the more cured, obviously it's a lot more expensive. But for me, I don't really notice a big difference. There is some difference in the flavors, but I like some of the cheaper hams that you can buy in the markets here. And I also have tried some of the very expensive as well. So I suppose I'm not really a connoisseur of ham, but do you notice much difference in the price? And I mean, some of the hams can be 300, 400, 500 euros a ham, can't they?
Well, up to €1,000 for a leg, absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, the sweet spot is the red label. I love that the last sort of 15, 20 years or so, they've implemented a color coding system to tell you how the pigs were raised and how the ham is produced. And when we're talking about the red label, it means that your ham is at least 75% purebred Iberian, and that Iberian pig gets all of the marbling through the meat, which is where that beautiful flavor comes from. And the red label means that the pigs have been eating acorns, and acorns are what make the magic happen. So acorns have a lot of oleic acid in them, and as the ham cures, that oleic acid breaks down the pork fat and turns it into something more similar to a nut fat. And so when we're talking about red and black label ham, we're talking about a type of cured meat that literally melts in your mouth because those sort of nut fats melt at room temperature. And so it's really a very different experience between kind of making that jump from the green label, which is a pig that's been fed on cereals, still free range, but not eating acorns, to the red label where they have been eating acorns, and you get that sort of melty magic from the red label ham.
Yeah, I did try it when our friends came down from Madrid last time. They brought down some, and he was telling me all the story about how they're fed on acorns. And yeah, I did notice the color, the grain in the meat, it was completely different, and yeah, the flavor was amazing. But God forbid the price. I don't like to ask how much it was, but I'm sure it was quite a few €100.
Yeah, maybe don't ask. Get a little bit, just 100 grams. 100 grams is probably going to be about €20, and it'll be sort of a special thing. But I would always caution, if you are going to get sort of a vacuum sealed package of ham, to open the package and leave it out on the counter, kind of put it on a plate and leave it out on the counter outside of the plastic for at least about half an hour before you eat it, and let it, as they say, start to sweat. And that's when you're really going to be able to appreciate all of the great flavors of the ham.
Yeah, and I was reading the other day that you can take hams, if it's vacuum wrapped and you don't open it, you can take it back in your hand luggage now, back and fro from the UK. But many years ago, I'm not sure what the law was then, but my mum came over here on a holiday and liked the ham. So for her birthday, I took her a whole leg ham back in the suitcase. It cost me about €90 and it filled up the whole case. Nobody stopped me. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but yeah, she loved it. I was very surprised when I pulled that out of the case.
Oh my goodness! As long as the little hoof wasn't sticking out.
Yeah, it was all completely intact, but it was wrapped up in the mutton cloth or whatever you like to call it. But yeah, amazing. So Amy, thanks very much for your tips. I'll try and put some of these in the description box below. I'll leave a link where people can get the links to these wines that you've recommended and the hams. And thanks very much for joining us on the show today.
It was my pleasure. Thanks so much, David. Hope we can take you out for a glass of wine next time you're in Madrid.
Sure, definitely will look you up. Thank you, Amy.
Awesome. Bye.